It was just another November night. The wind was shying away. While we were all complaining how winter never graces the city, who knew it was going to be the coldest night? Almost 4 years later, on 21st November 2012, Mohammad Ajmal Amir Kasab, the only terrorist caught alive, was hanged and buried at Yerwada Jail, Pune.
No, I will never forgive him. I will not forgive that Pakistan masterminds also. Because to forgive them is not possible for me. But the thing is that at least one satisfaction is there. This type of people are not required on the earth.
In our country, death penalty is reserved for what we call the rarest of rare cases. And I think the courts are very mature in weighing evidence and in deciding what is the rarest of rare cases.
According to the law, capital punishment is the legal process of putting a person to death for a crime. There is also a provision to temporarily prohibit controversial laws called a moratorium. In 1983, the Supreme Court ruled that death penalty must be imposed only in the rarest of the rare cases. Approximately 4 executions took place from the year 1985 to 1998, after which, up to 2003, there were no executions. In 2004, Dhananjoy Chatterjee, a security guard, was executed in a rape and murder case. Following that, no executions took place till 2011, marking a 7-year-long period of an unofficial moratorium. In November 2012, Ajmal Kasab was hung, and the last execution, that of Afzal Guru, took place in February 2013. Today, 140 out of 198 countries are abolitionist, either legally or in practice. Pakistan lifted its 6-year-long moratorium on the death penalty after the Peshawar attacks on 16 December 2014. For varied reasons, till today, India retains this legal form of taking life.
Now, I want to ask you a question. If the accused responsible for the planning of this Peshawar school attack are arrested, would you want them to be given life imprisonment, or would you want them to be given the death penalty? If you are so cold-blooded that you are shooting kids the ages of 5, 6, 7, 8 up to 14, 15, 16, and not one bullet, there are 4 or 5 bullets in one kid's body. Do you think this man would mend his ways?
There may be life imprisonment, but then who is going to bear the expenses of that person's life imprisonment? Indirectly we, because we are the taxpayer of this country. After the suffering so much, 26/11/2008, I will never say that my money should go for feeding such people.
For a whole range of offences, almost for all other offences in the Indian Penal Code, you have punishments either of fine or of incarceration. There is no reason for a third type of punishment, especially for homicide. I mean, fine and incarceration would serve just as well.
The Indian Penal Code was framed at least 2 centuries ago. That time the British had brought this law so as to curb a lot of crimes committed basically by Indians, so as to use force, tyranny, and deter such serious crimes, because murders during those days were not as common as they are now. But in any case, they had brought their law from England, which was existing then. England has reformed. There is no reason why India should not reform.
The law justifies punishment through 4 basic purposes. The first one is specific deterrence. which means the law punishes a specific individual to prevent him from offending again. The second purpose is general deterrence, which means the law punishes an individual in order to set an example for the general population. The third purpose involves reformation and rehabilitation, where the law tries to change the behavior of the offender so that he or she will not commit the same crime again. The final purpose of punishment is retribution, where the law tries to hurt the criminal and provide justice to those who are wronged. The question is, does capital punishment serve all these purposes?
You put a criminal like that into the jail. He is going to spend 15, 16, 20 years of his life in jail. Such type of criminals, they go inside jail and they indoctrinate people inside the jail. That old thing, put one rotten apple in a basket of good apples and the entire basket will get rotten. This is exactly what is happening. We are experiencing that. We are putting criminals in terror cases, in jails. They go inside and they are indoctrinating petty criminals and converting them into jihadis.
I don't know, perhaps Kasab could have been made into a saint. And sometimes, I have heard stories like Valmiki in that famous episode of Ramayana. वाल्याचा वाल्मिकी झाला, ऋषी झाला, संत झाला. My Indian culture has always taught me that life is sacred. All life is sacred. If it is sacred, then how can I defile that sacredness by committing a murderous act in the name of justice?
In many cases, especially in a country like India, there is another aspect of the debate, which is if you keep somebody in life imprisonment for life in a horrible prison condition in Bihar, UP or in many places, and those who are actually forced to leave cannot commit the suicide, they might as well think that penalty is much easier than living in this place where I am not going to come out. So life imprisonment, where it means for the entire life without any parole, it's no way, by no means, is actually a lesser punishment than the death penalty itself.
I would like to ask these human rights activists that you take a few criminals and keep them in your house and try to sudharo them in your home, and then let's see.
Today, the only justification for capital punishment as a form of retribution is that he's taken a person's life, so why shouldn't his life be taken? But this like for like theory doesn't work for rape, it doesn't work for robbery, it doesn't work for kidnapping. So somebody who's thrown acid on another person, do we throw acid on him? Someone who has raped, do we rape him? Someone who has robbed or kidnapped, do we kidnap his child or rob his house? This like for like theory has not been accepted in law. Why should it be applied specifically to homicide?
Death penalty in several cases has been arrived at on erroneous basis, and the Supreme Court itself has accepted this. We had the shocking instance a couple of years back when several eminent judges, they represented the President saying that the Supreme Court made a mistake in awarding death penalty to some 13 or 15 people who were subsequently commuted, but 2 were already hanged. So the Supreme Court has admitted that in the history of modern India, this was a blot on the judicial system.
I am not too sure about this report. Who has put up this report? It is not one court which decides on the death penalty. Suppose it's a sessions court where the death penalty is given. The court goes through the entire evidence. The prosecution put up evidence, the defense contradicts that, defense gets a chance to put up its evidence. Then the court arrives at a decision, death penalty. Once that death penalty is given by the sessions court, it goes for confirmation to the High Court. So the High Court also weighs the evidence, discussion, arguments take place in the High Court, and the High Court decides. Once the High Court has decided and approves the death penalty, it goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court also weighs the evidence. Everything is done in the Supreme Court. The defense gets a chance. The prosecution's evidence is weighed. It is vetted, and the Supreme Court arrives at a decision. After that, a mercy petition is filed before the president of the country. There again, all the evidence is with so many checks and balances. You think something like that would have happened? You see a lot of retired judges and others have joined human rights organizations. Why only talk about human rights of the accused? Why not human rights of the victims? Who's talking about human rights of victims? You take this Peshawar case. The scars in the minds of the parents and relatives, the scars on the minds of the siblings of those who have died. Can you imagine what the kids who got saved, what they will be going through for the rest of their lives?
Not just for 26/11, but everywhere in any crime. ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है कि सजा जिसके साथ हुआ है उसको क्या लगता है कि कौन सी सजा दी. Those who are not affected, they can have debates on this. If a girl has been, a woman has been raped, तो ये choice उसका होना चाहिए कि वो सामने वाले को क्या सजा देना चाहती है.
I don't think it's universally true that victims demand blood in return for their relatives having been killed. There are about 35,000 murders committed in India every year. 4 out of those 35,000 murderers are sentenced to death at the most. So are we saying that the other 34,996 victims do not get justice? They are not getting the death penalty in their cases. This idea that it's only capital punishment that can give closure is not at all correct. What gives closure is the following: you need severity of punishment is certainly one of them, but the others are equally important, which is celerity and which is swiftness of trial and certainty of conviction. There must be the offender must be caught quickly, and there must be a certainty of conviction. Even if these two are fulfilled, a much lesser sentence would serve the purpose much better than capital punishment. Also, I mean, there is no denying victims have suffered a great deal in an offense of homicide, but victims cannot determine punishment. Victims need to be compensated by the government. They need to be protected. Their rights need to be looked after. They need to be compensated for the loss that they have suffered. But that cannot come by way of killing another human being. It just doesn't make sense to kill somebody who has killed somebody in order to show that killing is wrong. I mean, how can you ever buy such a proposition?
It's true that victims are hurt, victims want revenge, but then we have to see that that kind of a mentality does not exist. Not only do you have to reform the criminals, but you have to reform the victims also, to counsel them, to come to the grips, come to the situation, accept the situation.
The biggest problem in this country, that the first citizen of the country, which is the president, he is supposed to follow the rule of law. He is supposed to ensure that his actions and decisions are judicious. But you would see in a number of cases, almost on all the cases, the president's decisions are not actually judicious. Now I'll give you one example. This is a submission which I'll be making to the National Human Rights Commission. This case relates to Krishnamurthy and 3 other death row convicts in Bihar. They had submitted the mercy plea in 2003. In 2004, the Bihar government had submitted and forwarded to the President of India's office. And today you look at the Rashtrapati Sachivalaya Secretariat, where they have a list of the pending cases where the mercy petitions are yet to be considered. They say there is no pending case. And essentially the mercy petitions which were forwarded by the Bihar government have been lost. The office of the President of this country loses the mercy petitions of somebody's, and not for 1 year, for the last 11 years, despite bringing it to the attention of the President's Secretariat and the Ministry of Home Affairs, they cannot find it. What could be more travesty of justice than the President of India actually not caring about a petition which has been submitted to him about life and death.
Time and again, the law commissions have made a recommendation to the government. But the government in power ultimately would not abolish death penalty because they are scared of the votes. They are scared of public opinion. They are scared of their losing their power if they bring in a law which abolishes death penalty.
Capital punishment has got nothing to do with law and order. It's got nothing to do with crime prevention. It's a political tool. It's used by politicians cynically and opportunistically to achieve political ends. Give you examples of this. By hanging a few rapists, are we going to make the streets of Delhi safer for women? Not at all. But what is necessary are the recommendations given by the Justice Verma Committee report. Those have not been followed. If the government really was concerned about making people feel safer, in fact making them safer, it would have implemented those reforms. Instead, what does the government do? Something which is much easier, much cheaper, let's hang a few rapists. That is the extent of the government's commitment towards making people safer. And also, it also shows how the death penalty is used to distract attention from the main issue. It's a symbol, it's a token, it's a gesture the government does, but it doesn't follow it up with anything concrete. It gives it to the victims to make them happy. It's a placebo.
After the Nirbhaya case, the Justice Verma Committee drafted a report highlighting reforms to make women safer, which have still not been implemented.
I think we are talking about making progress. So if Modi is saying that we are going to make this country so developed, we also have to develop mentally.
We have to abolish capital punishment, and the way to do it would be first to have a moratorium, let people see that we do not need capital punishment, that it does not make us safer. If we do not have executions for 20 years, people will realize that and will be more willing to jettison this idea of capital punishment. First step would have to be a moratorium, and then we can have abolition. They die a death every minute waiting for news of whether the mercy petition is going to be accepted or not. They are living under the shadow of a noose. This is torture of the worst imaginable kind. It's only comparable to a situation where a potential murderer tells his victim that 3 months from today he is going to kill that victim, or 6 years from today he is going to come and kill that victim. And then for those 6 years, the victim is going to live perpetually under the fear of constant death. That's the only comparable kind of situation, and can you imagine how can people not go mad? They do, most of them lose their sanity in such a situation.
Today in India, 477 convicts are on the death row, living with the hope that clemency will be granted. Now hollow fires burn out black and lights are fluttering low. Square your shoulders, lift your pack, and leave your friends and go. Oh, never fear, lads, naught is to dread. Look not left nor right. In all the endless road you tread, there's nothing but the night.